welcome back to another Overwater Bassist podcast. Today I'm talking to Meelie Traill. Meelie studied at the Liverpool Institute for Performing Arts and was actually there over COVID, so not that long ago, but she's already had an amazing career. She's currently on tour with Moulin Rouge. She was on Aladdin before that. She's worked on shows like Legally Blonde, Bring It On, Brokeback Mountain, Six, Dreamgirls. It's a huge list already of touring shows and also working in the West End. We're going to be talking about some of the skills you need to work on the shows in terms of your bass playing and also your personality. We'll talk about day-to-day life, so accommodation, how long you're in each place for. So you can get a bit of a behind-the-scenes look at touring with a musical theatre show. We're going to be talking about depping, sitting in, ways you can potentially get yourself into situations like Meelie has and meet the people you need to meet to work in these kind of situations. This is a really great episode. I've known about Meelie for a long time, but I've never sat down and chatted to her before. I really enjoyed the conversation. She's a really inspiring bass player. Enjoy, and we'll see you. All right, so let's just jump straight into it. So you've had a really busy year. I know you're on a week off at the moment. So can you tell us what you're having a week off from, what's been going on in 2025, and what's coming up for the last, autumn, winter bit of the year?
So I finished Aladdin in January and I had a bit of time off, and now I'm with Moulin Rouge on tour. So we just finished in Manchester and we start in Birmingham next week. So yeah, I'm at home for a week, which is a real treat. Doesn't happen very often.
So you've been away most of the year, right? So what does that look like for a theatre musician like yourself? You're kind of in a theatre for a week, 2 weeks at a time. For people that aren't in that world, what do you do in regards to where do you sleep? How do you get from place to place? What happens with your gear and all that kind of stuff?
I'm really lucky. I've been on these pretty large scale tours where it's not weekly. So Aladdin and Moulin Rouge, both, it was, it's been between 3 and 12 weeks in each city. So it means you can really sit down and settle in each city. So I've just done 7 weeks in Manchester. So in the UK, you get your touring allowance and then you book Airbnbs. So I've been staying with band members. I mainly stay with Scott, who's the drummer, and his 2-year-old daughter and his wife, which is very fun and chaotic. We're a little touring family because we've done both tours together, Scott and I. So yeah, you stay in digs somewhere in the city centre and then you commute in, and then I just try and get home back to Surrey where I live when I can, like this week.
Nice. That's a real luxury, because whenever I've done any kind of musical theatre touring, it's been maximum a fortnight in one city. So to have a real stretch where you can settle in, and obviously then it's worth investing a little bit more in your digs. I think some of the ones I've done, the Ibis budget in Birmingham city centre got a bit old after a fortnight. So yeah, having a proper Airbnb can make a real difference, right?
Yeah, definitely. I tried kind of doing it on the cheaper side when I started the Aladdin tour, and immediately I was like, nope, I can't do this. I can't do someone's spare room for 6 to 8 weeks. Like, it's just, I'm an adult. I want to live in my own space. So that's when I started booking more like actual self-contained flats, either with a fellow colleague and friend or just completely on my own, because then it just feels a bit more like normal life rather than just like, either being in a hotel where you can't cook or staying in someone's spare room where you're like, oh, can I use your kitchen? The like classic touring thing.
Yeah. That's a sort of a peculiarity of theatre world, isn't it? The dig system. So there is an option beyond Airbnbs and hotels where you can basically, there's a list of people who are happy to rent out their spare room to the touring party that are in the theatre that month. And you can, some of them are very nice, but some of them you are staying in some old couple's spare room in their house somewhere, which is great if you need to save money because they are quite cheap. But it's a funny way to live if you're a grown-up that's been used to having your own space and your own independence.
Yeah.
And suddenly you're kind of worrying about getting home late at night and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. It's suddenly like, and we always call them like Mrs. Miggins. I don't know why that's become a thing, but everyone always calls it Mrs. Miggins' digs. And it is, they can be so lovely, these people. But I think as you get older, it's just like, I don't feel like a uni student anymore. It's like, okay, I just want my own space and but feel like an adult, or at least try to feel like an adult.
Yeah, absolutely. With the show, let's get into kind of specifics with Moulin Rouge at the moment. So what basses do you need on that? Is it a mixture of upright and electric, or how are you approaching the show?
So when I got the chair, I messaged our MD, Ben Ferguson, straight away and said, like, what do you want for this? Like, are we copying what's in the West End in terms of setup? And I was told, go and sit in town, meet Ruben, who's got the chair in town, see what his setup is and see what you can mimic as closely as possible. So I went in, I saw Ruben, and he plays a 5-string jazz, 5-string P bass for a mixture of the electric songs, depending on the song, which he had copied, I think, from Australia. So it's like, it just all been copied down, and then he played upright. So then I came home and looked at my setup and was like, right, what can I do? So the jazz bass is obviously the Overwater, which is the main bread and butter of this show. Now, I know it's done me very well, as always. And then I didn't have a 5-string P bass, and I was reluctant to buy a bass before starting the tour. So I've got my really old Mexican Fender P bass in drop D, because it's only a 4-string, and I just play that in drop D, and that's been quite good fun. And then my upright as well. So that's the setup. I've got those 3 basses, and then I've got a spare 5-string electric in case of problems, which is my 5-string Stingray that just kind of sits there, looks pretty. I tune it every now and again, but I haven't had to use it just yet.
Yeah, our tech actually on Gabrielle has a running joke about my spare 5-string, because it never gets a game, sadly. It just kind of sits there looking abandoned in its case.
They do. They just sit getting dusty. Yeah.
Yeah. But you have to have it, so it's important. Sorry, I've completely lost my train of thought talking about that. This is weeks of sleep deprivation catching up with me. So you talked about, you went and sat in with the guy in the West End. I bumped into Dave Holmes, who's a guitarist, quite recently on Tina Turner and Mamma Mia, lots of others. He's always on a show in town. And he was telling a story the other week about doing a talk at BIM, because I've recently started mentoring at ICMP, and trying to encourage the students talking about sitting in, and trying to encourage them to be that slightly pushy person that is kind of messaging people like, can I sit in, and not sitting back and kind of waiting for opportunities to come to you. Did you do that in your early days of getting into theatre? Were you one of those people? How did you go? Because a lot of people in theatre, particularly in town, are going to be a fair bit older than you and I. You've got into that world quite early on, which is amazing. But how did you approach it? Was it very conscious from an early age?
I think for me, it was my second year of university. At the end of my first year of university, I'd got asked to play cabaret at uni. I was at LIPA, and it was like the dancers, because there's also dancers training there, do a musical theatre show at the end of every year. And last minute, I got asked to replace someone because they knew that I could read music, because I was classically trained on guitar. And so they were like, you're a reading musician, you play bass guitar, can you play cabaret on bass guitar? And I was like, yeah, whatever. But it was very much like, I didn't know what a vamp was. I didn't know anything.
Yeah.
And Jordan Alexander was the MD, and he completely looked after me, because I was literally totally clueless. I was like, what do you mean I hold on this bar and then you conduct me out? Like, I hadn't done anything like that before. I could read music and I could play bass, but I hadn't put 2 and 2 together. And I did it, and I realized it was quite fun. And then in my second year, I got a really good one-on-one teacher called Geth Griffiths, who I'm still in contact with now. And he does loads of theatre, and he basically kind of got me into it. He taught me double bass, because I didn't play double bass. And I started to realize it's actually quite fun. And then I started to pick work up. But then COVID hit in my second year of uni. This really shows my age. Now I'm like, really young.
You're younger than I thought you were, yeah?
Yeah, no.
I was having babies in COVID.
Yeah. And so I did most of my second half of my degree in COVID at home. And that's when I started doing the Instagram thing. And that's when that picked up. And I did all the videos, and I got the endorsement with Ernie Ball, which there's a funny story with that, because I thought it was a joke when they asked me. I was like, very funny at Ernie Ball emailing me, offering me like an endorsement. And that actually it was. And I was like, what is life? And then I finished my degree, and I went for it. I just tried to sit in on when I was a student, when COVID wasn't happening, anything going to the Liverpool Empire, I was there. I was trying to figure out who it was. I was just saying, look, I'm a student. I want to learn. Like, I don't want your job. I'm literally like 20. I just want to come and sit in. and chat to you about basses and watch and learn. And people were kind enough to let me sit in. And then I just carried on doing that. Once I graduated, it was, can I come and sit in? And it kind of organically grew from there. And also getting work through Instagram, which was the weird bit, because I think everyone talks about how their career progresses and it's different for everyone. And I can stem everything back to Instagram, which is really odd, because it's like, the theatre isn't modern in that way. Like, you think people don't hire you through Instagram, but if I go back to my early jobs, like Bring It On and initially Depping on Six, that was all through Instagram, which is just weird, wild in a way. And then it kind of, everything after that would then fall into place because I met those fixers and I met those people, and then I'd meet the next set of people and blah, 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 blah. And here we are.
Interesting. So was it fixers getting in touch with you, or was it other bass players?
It was other players, but then would introduce me to the fixers. Yeah. So that was the way that it kind of happened. And because Six went through a few different fixers at one point. So then I met a few different fixers just because of it. And then I kind of, and then it just stemmed from there. But yeah, I think like Bring It On was, I can't remember, a player gave my name to a fixer and then they emailed me, but that player I'd met through Instagram.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I got
that's a perspective we've not really had on here before.
Yeah.
You know, everyone's kind of conscious. I was talking to Ben Jones in the most recent episode, which actually goes out tomorrow, I think. And he was talking about the pressures of social media on students. And I think a lot of the narrative around social media can be quite negative. It's all to do with the negative effects of social media and the pressures it brings. But obviously for you, it really worked out well. You kind of dialed into it over the COVID lockdowns and then came out the other side with a real boost to your career.
Yeah, saying that, I backed off it now with the career side of it, because I started to be known as that kid from Instagram, and I was like, hang on a minute, I don't want that. I want to be the person that can play bass and hopefully play it quite well.
Yeah.
Instead of being, oh yeah, she's the one that does all those videos. So once it gave me, I used it as a step up to get my name out there. And then after that, I used the work I was doing to help me. So not just focusing on like churning out these videos, like 2 videos a week, which was taking up so much time. And that was like a full-time job. And you'll see now I don't really, because I don't have the time, because I'm on tour and I've got a life that I need to get on with and a career. And now it's more, I practice really hard and I go and dep on something. And that's where the reputation is, not the look at me playing bass on a video kind of thing.
Yeah, you have to back it up if you're gonna be kind of visible like that. You have to make sure you can back it up.
Yeah.
Can we just a little bit of a deeper dive into the sitting in? Because I think that's a bit of it's one of those terms that you and I are very familiar with, but to people outside of Theatreland, it's maybe a bit of a mystery. So can you explain the process from getting in touch with the person to what the evening looks like when you go and sit in on a show?
Yeah, it's actually been quite a big topic in the Moulin Rouge pit recently, because in Manchester we had so many students from RNCM, LIPA, like from all over, because I had a network from LIPA, and then there's the RNCM lot, and so we'd had a lot. It was like a constant flow with all the different instruments of students coming. So when I was a student, if we go down that path, if you're wanting to learn, you figure out who's on it. Normally people post on their social media what tour they're on. So like when I was at LIPA, I'd go, oh, Moulin Rouge is in Liverpool, and I wonder who's on that, and a bit of a deep dive. You figure out the MD and you kind of figure it out. And if you can't figure out who the player is, if you figured out who the MD is, they're normally pretty okay to put you in touch with the player. They'll like say to me, oh, by the way, this bassist has messaged me, can I put them in touch? And all the time we're like, yeah, fine, absolutely fine. So you message and you say, hey, I'm a student, can I come and sit in? I'd love to see what you do at work, blah, 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 blah. And you don't need to say much about it. You're not trying to sell yourself. The people on the chairs are busy. Like, all we want to know is, what day are you free? Are you going to behave yourself? Are you going to be polite? And are you going to turn up? Like, to me, that's all I care about. Like, I don't need to know you've done this show, you've done that show, whatever. I'll chat with you when you're with me. So then it's normally like, I'll say, can you come to stage door at 7 o'clock, 7:10? wear all black clothes, for example, no white logos. They'll tell you what you need to wear. If you're remote, they'll say you don't need to bother with blacks. If you need to be extra smart, it's like all those small things you can confirm with the player, because every pit is different. And then you'll meet at stage door, they'll bring you down, you'll sit in the pit. Usually you'll get your own little ME1 monitor mix, and then you can have a little fiddle. The show will start and you can listen, you can watch the MD, you can see what the player's doing in terms of the instrument changes, how they're playing it. Then you can chat in the interval and ask questions. I always say come armed with questions, not too many, but like if there's something you see and you go, I wonder how they're doing that, or why have they done that like that, ask. Like, for us, we're doing the same show every day. It's quite nice to chat about it sometimes, because otherwise we're just sat there and then we leave again. And we've done it for a whole year. Bring snacks for the band room. That always goes down an absolute treat, because I find, like, I don't know, just like bring something for people, because I'm not saying spend like 20 quid, just like buy a packet of chocolate, because people always want to eat. Like, all the bands I've been in love a snack in the interval, and that always goes down a treat. And just say thank you afterwards. I have had 15 sit-ins in Manchester, I think, in that 7 weeks. One said thank you afterwards.
Wow.
So it's like, come on, guys. And I was really tempted to put on Instagram being like, come on, guys, just be grateful. Like, just say thank you. Like, I know it's no extra time out of my day to have you down there. Like, it doesn't faze me at all. It's really nice to have people and talk about bass. But when you leave, just message afterwards and say thank you. And it's been across the board with instruments, like sit-ins, just people just not saying thank you. So I think that would be my advice. Message, be polite, be to the point, come, be smiley, ask a few questions, and say thank you afterwards.
Try to remember your social skills. Yeah, it's important.
It's just social skills, isn't it? Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, I mean, maybe. I mean, I don't know. I don't know how socially adept I was when I was a uni student, but yeah, you'd like to think people can remember to say please and thank you. Yeah, pretty monosyllabic, exactly. just a grunt.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing you've had that many people sitting in. That's bonkers. Like, and it's great that there is that. These students are kind of gregarious enough to be getting in touch and reaching out. Like,
yeah,
hopefully, the
really
message
nice.
that message is getting out there. This is the kind of thing you need to do to understand the business.
Yeah, exactly. Just meeting people, because I've had sit-ins so many over the years, and I've sat in, and it's like, I love still now going and sitting in on shows that I have I'm not coming into depth for them. I'm just coming in to see the show, because it's like to see them work, to meet them if I haven't met them, or just to see an old friend, have a coffee with them, hang out with them, chat about basses, have a nice day. They're at work. I'm just sitting and watching and learning, because you can always learn from other people. So yeah, I love a sit-in, even when I'm working, going and sitting in with other friends, because it's great to see other bands, meet other people, listen to something fresh.
Yeah, absolutely. You just said, I mean, you've been on Moulin Rouge for a good stretch of the year at this point. How do you play the same show night after night, but keep your sanity, for want of a better term? Like, what do you do to keep it fresh? How much margin in the show is there for expression, or do you have other outlets to keep the creative juices flowing?
It's definitely show dependent. If we're looking at Moulin Rouge specifically, there is a little bit of freedom. My rule of thumb is you put what you want to put as your own stamp. You put that in the band calls, because then it can get vetoed then. And if it doesn't get vetoed, then there's space there. Because the thing is, when you're in a pit band with 10 musicians, everyone's going to try and put their own little spin on things. And you don't want to get in the way of each other. Things have been written for a reason, to create space for, that little reeds, like little run up, or a drum fill there, or a bit of keys there, or some strings. So you've got to behave yourself. I think sometimes people think in theatre, look, there's slashes for 4 bars, let's go absolutely ham and do a bass solo. And it's like, no, you are the bassist. Like, you've got to still do your job and not go too crazy. So for me, to keep it fresh, I try and do a little bit of practice. I try and do a good warm up. Obviously, sometimes that's easier said than done. I'll rock up at 7:25 and be like, cool, let's go. I read a book during the show. the permission of the MD, said that's fine. I find like some people, if they look at their phones, I find that makes it go so much slower. And also if you're like, we're quite visible in this one, so you can't. So I read a book. I remember a drummer gave me that advice when I first started out. He said, if the show allows, this one does, there's a few scenes, get a good book on the go, because then what happens is when you're going to work, you're thinking, I wonder what's going to happen next in my book after about 6 months of being on the show. I didn't pick up a book on Moulin Rouge for the first 2 months. It took me a while to figure out where and like to know when to put it down, because you have to be so aware of your surroundings. So for me, I read, and that's quite, you see that a lot in pits, people reading. Yeah, that's how I kind of keep it fresh and keep my brain ticking over. And then when I'm actually playing, if I can put extra things in, I will. Or it's all about, I sometimes do a show and I think, you know what, today I'm going to really focus on my note placement. Like I'm going to place this bang on where I want it to be, or I'm going to turn down the click and turn up Scott on drums. I'm really going to lock in with him. I remember someone said to me once, working in theatre is like paid practice. And that sounds really weird because you're like, but you've practiced. And it's like, yes, I spent 6 weeks preparing the show before we started, but each time I'm going to focus on something different. So sometimes I go, I'm really going to focus on my intonation on the double bass today and the tone that I'm going to create with my bow and things like that. So that's how I kind of give myself little challenges each time.
That's quite important. You can really get into the kind of micro details with it, can't you? Because it's a given that you're going to play the right bass lines. You know you're going to structurally be in the right place, so you can really focus on those tiny things like note placement or intonation or tone production or something, stuff that is kind of a little bit more, I guess, mindful, playing mindfully.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because we do the same thing 8 times a week. It can get a bit like, and like there's one riff in Moulin Rouge that's like da 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 da. God knows how many times I've played that, like literally. But you just got to think of ways to like, because you can't add anything else. That is like you're in Vamps and you're just playing that riff and they're upstairs chatting away and the audience are laughing and you're just there. And like you have to think of ways to, you've got to focus on the MD. You've got to make sure you cue out that vamp at the right point. There's always something for you to think about. Like I'm never bored, put it that way. When people say I'm really bored in the pit, I'm like, how? Bored in the scenes? Yes, when you're not playing, fine, because we're all just sat there like this waiting. But bored when playing, there's always something to focus on.
Have you ever got so engrossed in your book that you missed a cue? We won't tell anybody if it happened.
Not on this tour. I've been okay. However, I think there was once on Aladdin where there was a loud thump where I had to throw the book down and start blowing.
Yeah.
So I try and like, I don't know how the brain works in this sense, but you almost just know, like you kind of hear and go, oh yeah, right, yeah, off we go. And you just know that you hear something and suddenly your brain almost switches back on to what's going on. It's like, it's really odd. You just know the timing, but then I've jinxed. Next week, there's going to be a thump of the book.
I mean, but then, like you said, though, you gave yourself 2 months, so like it was in your bones before you relaxed enough to actually start reading. But you don't start reading a book on like day one. That's taking too much of a risk.
Way after press night, I got way past press night and was like, okay, I think I've stopped trembling. I think I can read a book now.
Outside of theatre, what kind of playing do you find yourself doing or have done in the past? What are your kind of mid to long term goals? Do you want to stay in theatre and end up with your own chair in town at some point? What does it look like for you? Are you just kind of waiting to see what happens?
I really enjoyed the pop, more session stuff. I did a lot of that with a few artists before I started touring with Aladdin. I really enjoyed that and I'd love to get back into that, but it's just with organising depths on tour and people just know you're away, and I've got myself into the theatre world that to pull yourself back out would be a shame. It's also hard to do that, and I really enjoy the theatre and I really enjoy the day-to-day life structure. Like I've got a structure, and I do enjoy that. Day-to-day playing, to be completely honest, is Moulin Rouge and a bit of warm-up time. Like when I'm off work, I'm off work, and I do try and create a bit of a boundary that like when I'm at home I can cook and I can read a book and I can go on a run or go out on my bike, and that's me time. And then I get to the theatre and it's like, right, now yes, I'm a musician, I'm going to do this. And I do sometimes think I should practice other things. And it's so much, I don't know for you, but like on tour, it's like the setup's not the same. For double bass, I can only have it in the pit, and then you've got other people listening and you're like, oh, I don't like it, they can hear me and it sounds really bad, because practice doesn't sound good. That's the whole point of practice. Yeah, I'd say it would be amazing to work in town again. I've done it before. I'd love to do it again, to be at home. Craving just being in my own bed every night would be the biggest treat in the world. But for now, I'm really enjoying Moulin Rouge. See where the tour goes. So you kind of see what happens next. I just keep working to the next thing and keep trying to keep my name out there and see what happens, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because, like you said, I guess you're kind of a victim of your own success in one sense, because once you end up on, with the kind of career that you have, you're very busy throughout the year. You're making good money. You've got a nice work-life balance, like you say. I mean, that's the main thing I've taken away from when I've jumped on touring shows or done bits in town, is it's the amount of, it feels like balance. Like you've got a very specific time when you have to be at work, and the rest of the time, if you have a side hustle you want to work on, or you want to go to the gym or ride a bike, go for a run, you have all this time. The day is very structured, much more so than I think it is often in the music industry, where everything can be a little bit like, well, I could be in rehearsals till this time, but it might be till then, and then I'm not sure when sound check's going to be. So everything can be a bit vague sometimes, whereas theatre, it's very regimented.
Yeah, and it's
much
also
easier
like,
to build life around it.
Yeah, between Aladdin and Moulin Rouge, I freelanced, so I did bits and bobs. I depped on some things. I did a few school shows in London and things like that. And it's like, then suddenly you're back into this, like, oh, well, I'm depping next week, so I need to spend all week learning this. So then you're kind of working a 9 to 5, because then I'm trying to line up with my boyfriend's hours, because he works 9 to 5. And then I have the evenings off, which is really nice. And you're like, oh, this is nice. And then you're playing bass in the day, but then suddenly you go away for 4 days and do that depth work, and then you come back, and it's like, yeah, you're taking it week by week, and you're chasing up invoices, and you're doing this and you're doing that, and it's like, that is, I like being at home, but yeah, there's no boundary on time. Like, there's always more you can do to work on a show before you go in depth. I find there's never like a moment where I'm like, cool, I'm ready to go. It's like, I will spend 2, 3, 4, 5, depending on the show, weeks preparing for a depth. And you're just like, I just need to get it done now. It'll never be perfect, but I've spent 5 weeks. There's no more I can physically do. I just need to get it out of the way. But it's the constant knowing that you could do a little bit more. Whereas when you're on a contract, you know that work starts at 7:30 p.m. So I'll be there for 7:30, and I have all day to do whatever I want, which can be quite nice, but you're not at home. So that's the toss up with touring.
Yeah, that's been a kind of a regular thing that a lot of people we've spoken to have come back to. I mean, I know Sam Edgington said that very recently, and when I've spoken on things like this, it's the same thing. I can never relax until I get to show day. And if you tell me about a gig 3 months before, I'm going to end up practicing for 3 months. And because once you get past that show day, then you kind of know where you are with it. But up until then, it is the unknown, isn't it? You want to keep doing a little bit extra because you need that moment to be perfect. There is an element, particularly in your world, I think, where it's a pass or fail kind of test. There's not a lot. I mean, there's a little bit of gray area, but there isn't a lot. You either nail the show or you kind of screwed it up. There isn't, because everyone's so used to hearing it perfect.
Yeah, or just not even perfect, the way that the player plays it, and then, the way the chairholder plays it, and then the depth comes in. And I think I have so much adoration and respect and love for every single depth I've ever had in, because the depths are the ones that keep the show like running, because I take time off to freshen up, to go and do another gig, to come home and feel better, because sometimes, I'm at work and I'll be like, oh, I just want to go home, and then I'm being a rain cloud. So it's like, let me take myself out. I'm going to go home. I'm going to bring in a nice, fresh face who's going to smash the show, who's going to play it really well, be really positive. You know, so it's nice for everyone when Deps come in. It's a different person to hang out with. There's a different person to chat to. And it's so much work being a Dep. It's such hard work because, as you say, you spend 3 months preparing for maybe a week's worth of work. Then, you know, as the chair, for example, we pay them and stuff, but I don't think you can ever pay a Dep enough, if that makes sense. Like, obviously, you give them on paper the show fee, the touring allowance, their travel, blah, blah, blah. But it's the amount of work, the hours that they actually prepare, if they prepare properly, is like so much more than what they are getting paid. And I remember I depped on something in between Aladdin and Moulin Rouge, and I did it, and you know, the classic, like, you're shaking beforehand and you're like, ah, and I'd worked weeks to do it. And I text Josh, who's done so much depping for me on Aladdin and Moulin Rouge. He's based up in Manchester, and I was just like, I have so much love and respect for you. Like, I already did, but like, this just reminded me how hard your job is compared to mine. So, like, thank you so much for everything you've done for me for the past year and a half, and everything you will continue to do, because I'd already booked him on Moulin Rouge shows, and
Nice.
yeah, he's done loads for me. So yeah, Deps are the best. They keep shows running.
Yeah, it's a real, it can be, it's a real slog, isn't it? But it's doing all that work, all that prep that you don't get paid for and that nobody sees. That's what kicks the door down sometimes. If you're trying to break into a new space, you need to do that stuff, because if you go in and you're okay, then there's going to be another person who did do all the homework and is going to nail it.
Yeah, of course. And it's like, you know, now I've been a chairholder twice on touring, and I've had Deps in. It's like, you know, for example, for me, I go to the MD and I go to Scott, the drummer, and I say, look, how was it? Like, after their first show, I say, hey, Scott, how was X? Were they any good? You know, Scott or the drummer might go, oh yeah, they were good. They were really good. Really loved them. Definitely book them again. Or they might go, don't think they did their homework. And then it's like, so I'm a bit like, probably won't book them again then, because if they haven't, for me, you're leaving your job with someone else and with your colleagues, and the better the person you leave with them, the happier workplace you return to as such. Because if it's been harder work for the drummer or anyone because the tempos have been a bit off because you've got a different player in, they're not as happy at work for those few days you're not there. So you want to keep everyone happy. I always think get a Dep that's better than you in, which is what I always try and do. I'm like, I will always get someone that's way better than me, because at least everyone at work is going to be so happy while they're there. Like, everyone thinks, oh, you're not scared they're going to take your job. It's like, no, that's my chair. Like, it's my job. I'm contractually working on this show, and I just want to keep everyone happy while I'm not there on holiday or come home for a bit of time.
That's a good point. It's not a situation where, oh, I'm going to book someone who's 10% worse than me because I don't want to lose my job. You're in no danger of losing your chair.
Yeah.
You know, if we call up Phil Mulford isn't going to suddenly take your gig because he's Phil Mulford. He's got his own life going on. But everybody's going to be real happy that we got a great bass player in, someone who's a real pro and is going to nail it. It's something you just kind of, you don't need to worry about your job or your ego. Just, you get the best person for it, because they're gonna make you look good.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, it's still your name in the program. It's still your name on the screen outside. Like, that doesn't change when a Dep's in. Like, so like, you know, I've had messages before where someone's gone, oh, it sounded brilliant, and I was like, wasn't me. I was at home. Like, you know, or like once, for example, like Horror Story 101 was in between shows. I got food poisoning, and so I was off in the evening because I was being so poorly without being graphic. And we had to have a key bass, like keys bass. And my friend texted me going, oh, it sounded great. I was like, mate, I was in the band room vomiting. That was not me.
Wasn't even a bass.
Yeah, literally was a keyboard player. Shoned was amazing. That was like second to last week of the Aladdin tour. That kind of thing you have nightmares about, like, actually happened.
Yeah.
It was awful. But the show still goes on. Like, it's not the end of the world. Like, when something like that, for example, is completely out of your control, like, you know, I just had been poisoned by something, and I got through the first show and thought, And by, between the two shows, that was it. That was like game over. I was too poorly. The show will happen without you. And like people, like that friend who watched was a musician. So like I thought she'd hear that there was like key space, but even like they're looking at what's going on stage. So like, the show will always happen without you, and the depths, albeit key space, if they're good, great. Like no one's gonna know out front.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's get quite specific. Someone watching this who wants to get into life as a professional bass player, it doesn't have to be theatre related, could be, the other stuff you're talking about with artist gigs or different sessions. But what are the key skills I'm going to need if I want to break into the music business right now?
I think people skills are the most important thing. I think you like talking about depths. Normally if I say, oh, how was the depth, it'll be, yeah, they played really well and they were a nice person. Those are the two things that always come up. It's like they did their homework and they weren't like a dickhead, basically. Like that is, so I think what people sometimes focus on so much is the playing. And yes, obviously you've got to be good at what you do and you've got to do your practice, but the people skills are so important because it is a sociable job. You don't really say like, oh, my colleague. It's always just my friend that I work with.
Yeah.
Because it's very blurred lines. Like you're all just good mates on tour or in town or on a pop gig together in a band. Like you just need to be nice to everyone and not be rude. If something goes wrong, don't I've had things where my bass is broken and there's no point in saying, oh, it's your lights that are making my bass buzz. It's like, here's the problem. My bass is buzzing. What can I do to solve it? That sound guy will probably know a lot about limiters. So let's get him to help me make a good limiter on my HX, for example. Like instead of just going, oh, leave me alone, it's all broken. Right, you'll turn your lights off, which I've seen people do. It's like, no, let's just be friends and work together as a team.
Yeah, definitely. It's those kinds of things, those soft skills are really important, aren't they? In terms of reading, I mean, you said you came up playing classical guitar, so you would have come up, reading from day one. It sounds like a silly question because we're talking so much about theatre here, but how important is reading? Because like you said, you'll get the show a good bit in advance, you get a video of the MD. So if I'm 18, I'm about to start university, should I be focusing on my reading?
If you want to get into theatre, if you can't read, yeah, you've got to be able to read. Because yes, you get it in advance, but you're getting 80 pages of sheet music. It'll take you hours to, like, for example, tab it out. And I think also, if I'm booking a dep and someone says, oh, my mate, him, is really good, I'll go, can he read? It's the first question.
Yeah.
Because it's just like with theatre. But for example, with pop work, I don't know any time I've had to read. Like it's, here are the bass stems, here are the tracks, figure it all out by ear and then memorize it. Like there's nothing to do with sheet music there. It's just listening, playing, writing it down, for example, as like a quick cheat sheet. Then you narrow down to nothing and it's all in here. And so I think it depends on the line of work. If we're talking about theatre specifically, you've got to learn to read and you've just got to put the time in. There's no other way of doing it but putting time in. And I was lucky that I started age 5 reading music. So by the time, I got to age 18, it was, easy for me. Saying that though, I'd learned in treble clef and I had to then learn in bass clef, which was a bit of a challenge to start off with, to flip it. But once I got that, you've just got to get, for theatre, yes, read. Other things, not necessarily.
Yeah, definitely. It's important to say as well, like, yes, you get stuff in advance, but there will also be changes made on the day. Sometimes you'll get a cut, you need to extend this section or go straight from this bar number to that bar number. So whilst that's not necessarily, reading a tricky phrase of dots, it's navigating sheet music is super important. Do you go with dots or iPad?
If I'm on a chair, I'll have the paper because I'll learn the page turns. If I'm depping, I will use my iPad and a page turning pedal because it means I can practice the page turns at home. Because then it means there's nothing new when I get there. Because otherwise, then you're trying to turn the page and you're dropping paper and it thing. And then I always use the iPad, have it always plugged into power. I'll have the paper on the floor in case something were to go awry and the iPad were to crash. But if it's me on the chair, then I will just have the paper, so I don't have to remember an iPad. But yeah, talking about the reading, you know, I think most of the time the way people get in to the industry is through an emergency phone call. It's through a, can you be in, because people start vomiting between shows.
Yeah.
Like, and the fixer suddenly needs to go, oh my goodness me, I need to fill this. Like, I need someone here now that can just read. And it's just because it gets to a point with emergencies where it's like a bum on a seat, where it's like they've never done theatre before, but they can read music, so it'll probably be okay. And whatever they do is saving the day. And
Yeah.
like, I have so much respect for people that can have the confidence to go, yeah, I'll come in and sight read that. Like, that's an
Yeah.
insane amount of confidence to be able to like be confident enough in yourself that you are going to do it and you are going to do well. And it is so petrifying. I've done it, like, because you kind of, it all happens so fast. You're suddenly just sat in this chair in a pit and you're like, okay, this is happening. I don't know how I got here. This morning I didn't know about this, and now I'm here and I've just got to do
Yeah.
it. So like, being a good reader, and then you do your emergency debt, and you absolutely smash it. You save the day. The chairholder loves you because they were really ill or they had an emergency they needed to get to. The fixer then really likes you because you've just saved them. And then all of a sudden, in 4 weeks' time, the same chairholder goes, hey, do you want another couple of dates on this? Not as an emergency. And then you're in with that fixer and that player and that MD because you've just saved them from either a cancelled show or a bassless or trumpetless show.
Yeah, absolutely. That's an interesting thing as well, talking about fixers there who kind of, I think, again, a lot of this kind of stuff I can remember it myself a long time ago, where it was all these kind of characters are quite mysterious, mythical beings. You've got who are fixers? And like, of course, these are the people that are booking the musicians to play on the shows, right?
Yeah.
But
yeah.
Is it a situation, because I know I've been in pits where some very keen young person has trying to do the right thing, has left their CV at stage door with a letter for the musical director. These kinds of things, I mean, I've not heard of any examples where those kinds of things have worked. And it's kind of the same emailing a fixer out of the blue. A lot of the connections are much more organic. It's a situation like you just described there, where you get, a parachute dep and you get through it fairly unscathed. And then from that point, you've gotten in with the player and the fixer.
Yeah.
Is that the case? Do we? But a lot of those kinds of that kind of leaves it up to chance that you're going to be ill, you're going to know who I am anyway. Are there conscious things I can do besides what we talked about earlier with sitting in? What other very conscious things can I do to get to know the right people, the fixers, the players, and introduce myself to them in a natural way without being pushy or kind of networky?
I think fixers are people at the end of the day. Like, the band, end up maybe going to the pub with them. Like, they are just people. They're just the ones that have the really, I think, quite nice job of giving people jobs.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's any harm in emailing a CV, but once you think you're qualified enough, I think the thing that people do wrong is they're still at university, for example. They haven't done any professional shows and they're emailing a fixer, because the fixer's like, well, what am I going to do with this? You've got no experience. I can't hire you on a chair with no experience. So it's like being too premature with it, I think, is sometimes the problem. I'm not a fixer, so I don't know how they think, but I know if I would potentially to be one, if I got a student emailing me, I'd be like, there's something I can do with this. Whereas if I got a student a few years down the line that had done a little bit of depping and had seen bits, you'll go, oh, great, someone young that's keen, that's wanting to get into this world. I'll put that on my little pile, and when a tour goes out or a fringe show or whatever, I'll have a chat with them. I'll get them to send a tape. I'll ring around, see if anyone knows them and if they recommend. So I think there isn't any harm in emailing a fixer your CV. I think it's doing it at the right time. But I think getting sit-ins, just sitting in, is one of the, as you say, is one of the best things, because that has to go through the fixer's diary with most fixers. Like, I put a sit-in into the band's diary, whether they're a dep or not. So that name goes past them anyway. So they see that this person sat in. And for example, in an emergency, they are going to go down who sat in. So like, if, Joe Bloggs has sat in and I'm
Mm.
ill, they will end up being like, oh, what about that guy that sat in? And it's like, oh yeah, give him a call. At least he's seen it. At least he kind of knows what's going on. So
That's
I think
interesting.
sit-ins can be the
I didn't
most
know
important
about
thing.
that. That's a really interesting thing. I didn't know the fixers were made aware of who was sat in on any given
I think
night.
that's the system that on Moulin Rouge is like we have a little website, and it's also so then the sound team can put an ME1. So I submit all the sit-ins, go through a thing, and they get accepted by the fixer.
Yeah, sure.
And so like all the non-deps, all of them, and I put their full name in, and it just gets accepted, so the sound team can see where the chair's going to go with the ME1. But it means it goes through the system, and so I can see all the sit-ins that I've had and all the names for everything. So there were a moment where I was like, oh my goodness me, no one's free and I'm ill. And Manchester, there was this guy that sat in and I'm now in Liverpool. Let's give him a quick ring. Let's see if he's available. So
Yeah. Nice. Interesting. So finally, we always finish with this one. What advice would you give to yourself when you were, I don't know, when you were in your first year at LIPA, let's say, I mean, you've already had a pretty rapid rise to success anyway, much quicker than my own, certainly. But what would you say to young Meelie to really kind of avoid some of the pitfalls that everyone falls in along the way and help you accelerate that process even more?
I almost think take a bit of a chill pill at the start.
Nice.
Just like practice, go home and practice. There isn't a rush. Like things, if you work hard enough and you network well and you're nice to people, and you know, when you're in London, for example, if you're like around in London and you think, I want to meet the guy on Hamilton, like message them, try and see if they'll go for a coffee. If they can't have a sit-in, they might have a coffee. Try and network as much as you can. It doesn't have to be eggy. Like it can just be, hey, I'm like, you don't have to say you're trying to look to get into theatre. Just like, hey, I'm also a bassist. Do you fancy a coffee before your show on Thursday? And they'll either say no, or they'll say yes, or they'll just ignore you. And like, that's fine. Like, go and meet people or go and meet musical directors. I think in the like lower stage ones where you're doing stuff for schools and stuff where there are no fixers, it's the musical directors that fix the band. So it's getting to know the musical directors, because then when they start climbing the ranks, for example, you did a school show with them, then, you know, 4 years down the line, they get fixed for a big tour. They'll go to the fixer. Oh, well, I used this guy at this show years ago and they were great. Can we put their hat in the ring for the bass chair, for example? I think musical directors have a bigger say in the fixing bands thing than you realise. Because it's at the end of the day, they're the ones that have to work with you every day, not the fixer.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Those school shows are quite, I did a lot of that kind of stuff before I did any kind of pro shows where, you know, I was doing kind of, you know, the Arts Ed and Third College and all those kinds of Tring College and all those kinds of things. And they're really good ways to get to know a lot of different shows, learn the skills you need, but, you know, kind of before you step up to the bigger leagues, I suppose.
Yeah, and you get the odd, like, you know, really seasoned pro there that's just like got a gap in their diary and it's like an excuse to play another show. And you're like, wow, like I'm playing with you. Like this is really cool. And you meet these people that you wouldn't meet otherwise. And you wouldn't, you know, you're not going to go dep on the big show in London that they're on, but they've just taken a week off for a change of scene. And so I think everyone turns their nose up. That'd be another like advice myself, is everyone always turns their nose up at school shows. But I love them. I did one in January in my gap between like thing in between tours, and it was great fun. And I met loads of cool people, and they're a great way to meet people and a great way to, as you say, just like expose yourself to 1,000,001 shows, as many as you can. And then you've done that show, you tick it off. It's in the bank in case it goes on tour.
Again, so I can cut out my fluff. Let's do 3 questions. Any genre, any world. What's your dream gig?
Probably some big pop gig. That'd be amazing. Like touring with an artist. I'd like to do that like when I'm now this age, like being away from home. I'd love to do something like that.
Yeah. Nice. I mean, you've been in theatres for such a long time. I think I know the answer to this one, but are amps dead?
Yes. Unfortunately, yes. But saying that, I depped on We Will Rock You, and Neil Murray was on that, and he had like the really cool rumble platform and bass head, and that was so much fun to be like vibrated by the bass guitar every time you played. He gave it to me after he finished Rock You, and I've like got it in my storage locker at my mother's, as every musician
Nice.
does. You have a parental storage locker.
Yeah.
And it's great fun, but I'm like, when am I going to use it? Because it's like you need it on like if I ever get like a pop gig, I'm like, that rumble platform is coming straight with me with a huge amp. But theatre wise, yeah, unfortunately, amps.
I feel like a theatre is the only time I ever wanted like if I was doing your gig, I would want the Porter and Davies drum throne that those guys have.
The butt kicker, yeah.
Yeah, it makes such a difference. But unlike on Gabrielle or with Boys Life, they want us to move around the stage. So the idea of having a 2-meter square platform doesn't really work anyway. It's like that's kind of why I finally just said goodbye to the amp, because I'm very rarely stood in front of it anyway. It's nice to have that pocket where you can kind of lean into, but we're all on wirelesses and they want us roaming around anyway. So it's
I think the reason I don't use it on Moulin Rouge is because you can't get the double bass on and off it really easily with quick changes, and you get so much vibration from the double bass. If the double bass was my foot as well, I'd be like this whenever I played double bass. If I was on a bass guitar only show like Rock You, I'd probably dig it out, because it's like an excuse to be a bit which is always nice.
Nice. I haven't got a third question.
Oh, right, okay.
this is how unprepared I've been today. This is
all right. Don't worry about it.
Sorry,
do you want to talk about the Overwater more because it's an Overwater podcast, or are they like, I don't know?
Let's get into. I presume it's in the pit at the moment, is it?
Yeah, unfortunately, it's on a lorry somewhere between Manchester and Birmingham.
Yeah. Let's do that, and then I'll snip it in earlier on.
Yeah.
Let's talk about your bass a little bit. I've shared a few photographs of it on the social media. It's a really stunning looking instrument. Can you talk us through the process, actually how you got to know Chris and the team in the first place, who made you aware of them, and then why you chose certain aspects of your instrument?
So I was having lessons when I was a student with Ian King, who I think is on Hercules at the moment. And he was always playing his Overwater over Zoom, and I was like, oh, that's a nice bass, that. And then we would always talk about it, and he'd be like, oh, and you can personalize this, you can do that, and you can add these pickups, and you can, because I was saying I love my Stingray, but it's not quite theatre appropriate sometimes.
Yeah.
But I want something that feels like a Stingray and behaves like a Stingray, but looks like a jazz bass, because that's what people want you to play. Because I found with Fender Jazzes, they lacked that like oomph, and I still wanted that oomph. And Ian was like, you need an Overwater. And I was like, oh. So then I got in touch with Chris, and we had hours over Zoom, back in the Zoom days of speccing it out. So I had the same scale, the same, like, or the whole, like basically a Stingray, but with the 2 jazz pickups. And I started with the Overwater pickups, but I switched them out to Bartolini's, and I've got the John East preamp in the back. And Ian actually helped me edit, because the John East, you can take the back off and you can edit what that mid-range scoop is from the inside of the bass. So Ian helped me with that, and we had a little fiddle of what frequencies I wanted, and all that kind of thing. And then the finish is quite a funny story. I remember I said, initially I wanted like bright orange or something, and then I was like, let's go pit appropriate. And so I said, well, I do like some ombre thing with like blacky grey, and sent them a photo of one of the things I'd seen. And they were like, yeah, cool. And then I think, I can't remember who rung me, but someone rung me and was like, I want to darken the grain. Will you let me do that? And I was like, I'll give you full artistic direction. You do whatever. And what they did with the darkening the grain and the ombre just looks absolutely beautiful. Like, I would never have come up with that myself. That was all, I think, Martin. Was it Martin?
Yeah.
I think it might be Martin that called me and was like, I was like, I want to darken the grain. I want to make it look really cool. And I was like, absolutely fine with me. You go for it. And then, the matching headstock and the block fret inlays. And then I've got the loom inlay dots along the side of the neck. So when I'm in a dark pit, they look at me a little bit more.
Nice.
That's kind of the story of the bass.
Those loom inlays, I'm having some put into a bass at the moment. they can be lifesavers, kind of, particularly in a
Mm,
pit, or when it's something where
yeah.
it's complete blackout. But do you have the little torch? Do you have to charge them up before you go on?
Yeah, I've got a bit lazy with charging them up, I have to say, because I sit forward enough, like close enough to the music stand that I do have a bit of light.
Okay, yeah,
But like if I do need them, then yeah, I go with the torch up and down, and then I'm like, oh, I can see. So they've been
yeah.
brilliant, those lumen lays. And I've been to the Overwater factory once, I think. I was driving up to Glasgow, and I was having a problem with the Overwater at the time. It wasn't literally just wasn't working. It was only working on the passive, and it was this
Okay.
classic thing. Chris was like, "You sure it's not the battery?" I was like, "No, I've changed the battery like 6 times. It's
Hmm.
just not working." And he was like, "Cool, bring it up on the way." And we went in. He'd like stayed late because I was coming up late. Plug it in, works.
Works. Yeah.
And I was like, all I had to do was get in the vicinity of Carlisle, and then the bass was like, "I'll work now."
No, but they're the worst kind of faults sometimes, because then you just can't trust that instrument until you've kind of like
Yeah,
definitively worked out what's happening.
yeah. So then I had it serviced by Liam Mulford, Phil Mulford's son. He's great. He services a lot of my basses for me, and he said he was like
Hmm.
shaking it to make sure, and then playing it because he thought something might be loose. I think it just needed a de-dust clean out from
Yeah,
all these
quite
dusty,
possibly.
horrible pits. I think that's literally all it was in the end.
Yeah, I
But yeah,
mean, a
no,
bass like yours is it's such a workhorse, doing 8 shows a
it is
week and
absolutely, yeah.
getting travelled around in a truck and everything. Like, yeah, it's they need a bit of TLC every now and
Yeah, I mean, it is. Yeah, workhorse is definitely the word for that bass. It's done every bit of work with me. Any theatre gig, I don't know a single theatre gig that I haven't had that bass on.
then. Yeah. Well,
It's
actually,
come me
while
everywhere.
we're on while we're on gear, are you using any pedals on the shows, or what's your kind of signal chain like?
So I got two. I got one pedal board with two like kind of chains going through, one for upright, one for electric. So electric, I've got both basses going into a Lele switch that go out to a tuner and then onto an HX stomp, which literally just has compression and EQ on it. I like created this compression and EQ 4 shows ago, and I just really liked the way it made the Overwater sound that I've just left it as it is. And the sound team always go, "Wow, that sounds great," and I'm like, "Don't know what I did, but I like it, so I've just kept it."
Don't touch
So
it.
then it goes out to a volume pedal, and then underneath is again another tuner, but for the upright, and that goes into a Stanley Clarke EBS mute double bass little DI box thing, and then there's also a microphone that the show always supply. So yeah, I kind of do HX for electric, EBS for upright.
How is that Stanley Clarke EBS thing? I want to try one of those.
I love it because I had a Fishman which broke on
Yep,
me,
I have that.
and absolutely mugged me off mid-show. And I was like, "Oh, I'm not going to buy another one. I don't know what to get." And then I think Pete Hunt said to me, "I think you should get the EBS." And I was like, "Okay." So I went to Addison's
Mm,
and bought it, and yeah, I love it. It's done me so well. It sounds great, and the way you can plug the microphone, I haven't got it on this, but you can plug the microphone into it as well. So it means you've
yeah,
got all of it coming in and out of one box. It's great. I find with sound teams on bigger shows, they want the separation of the two channels. So you will have, a mute for the mic and a mute for your pickup. But if you're on a smaller gig, it's just you can put the mic in, you can put the DI in, and you've got one box for everything. And you could run your
nice.
electric bass through it if you wanted to as well. It can work as a switch.
Does it take Phantom?
I haven't used. I think so. I want to say yes, but I need to fact check that because I've never actually plugged the microphone into it.
That's always been
I've
my
always
my
just go
major
separately.
boggle with the Fishman. It's always frustrated me that you can't run it off Phantom power. So I always
Yeah,
have to remember to take a power supply in my double bass case, or like get
yeah,
through 9-volt batteries like nobody's business.
yeah, yeah,
This,
yeah,
this we've gone really niche for anyone listening that isn't specifically interested in double bass preamps.
yeah.
That's going to be it. But I needed to know, so that was important.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I don't know if it does. I can't remember. I've just got it on a power supply, so
Yeah,
yeah,
of course.
haven't tried it yet.
All right. Well, look, thank you so much for your time today. That's absolutely brilliant. I think there's some really useful stuff in there for everybody, and it's lovely to catch up with you.
Yeah, nice to virtually meet you as well.
All right, Meelie. Thanks for your
Yeah,
time. Have
exactly.
a great day.
See you soon. Bye.
Bye.